Welcome to the ClearAdmit MBA Admissions Academy. I'm Graham Richmond, and I'm with Alex Brown for this lesson on letters of recommendation. Alex, this is the third lesson on letters of recommendation, and this one's all about coaching the people who are writing for you. So, I always feel like we tell people to go out to lunch with their recommender and break the news and talk them through the process, and it merits some discussion, right? Yeah. I mean, you got to spend some time with your recommenders.
Yeah. This isn't just like a transactional experience where you email the recommender, say, could you fill this form out for me, please? They've agreed to do it, and they go ahead and do it. You want to be much more deliberate about this. You want your recommender to truly understand why you're applying to business school, why that particular business school. You want your recommenders to know what your goals are, what you plan to get out of all this, and have them really buy into this journey that you're undertaking. And in that way, they're really going to support you, right? So it's kind of, again, it's marketing 101, but it's now they need to know this stuff so that they can best represent you in the recommendation process.
Yeah, and you just, as you were talking, you made me think about how, imagine if the letter that's submitted doesn't really jibe with what you're talking about in terms of your career plan. Even something as simple as that. Like maybe you work in finance and you're dying to pivot into healthcare, but you haven't informed your recommender of that. You've just sent them an email, said, fill out this recommendation form. And they talk about how you are a brilliant financial mind and that they know you want to stay in that space forever. You're going to be a superstar. There's a huge disconnect there that could almost derail your candidacy. So you got to sit down. And I think, buy them lunch. Like you're asking them to do a big favor for you. I mean, it's a lot of work to fill out these, and you can make it easier for them, but it's still work. They're going to have to put in the time. Now, when you sit down with them, we always recommend that you bring some things along, right? Yeah. And the first thing that I would say to bring is a list of the schools you're applying to, along with their deadlines. And, as you just alluded to earlier, that you need to let them know, why you want to go to business school, why you're doing this. But is there anything you want to add on the deadlines piece? Because I know we talk about this, because recommenders are notorious for being late, and that can derail your candidacy too. I mean, some schools are a little forgiving if something comes in a couple days late. But so what do you recommend people do on this front?
I would say humans are notorious for being late.
Yes.
Recommenders are no different. So when you say, well, I'm applying to HBS and their deadline is in September 15, and you're having that conversation in June, they're just going to put in their calendar September 10th or something, recommended to HBS for John or whatever the thing might be. You want to absolutely avoid that. So maybe update or whatever you call it, those deadlines, maybe a week or two, to sort of ensure that you have a little bit of buffer room to get it in. And along those lines, it shouldn't just be one and done. I had my lunch with the recommender, gave them a bunch of forms and stuff. They're going to do it. You want to keep in touch with them through that journey so that they will be producing those recommendations prior to the deadline. So to keep that relationship moving forward. Yeah,
and you're making me smile because in the second round of MBA admissions, the time frame for submitting is often over the Christmas holidays when people are busy. And so, to the extent that you can get your recommendation writers going early and check in with them before you get into the 11th hour, really smart. I do think that you want to, even though you're going to go online and put their name and email in, and they're going to get instructions from the school and a link to go and fill out the recommendation form online, you want to furnish them with materials and talk with them. So you're going to give them a list of all the schools and the deadlines, which you might fudge so that they get them in early. I also think you can make for them a master list of questions that they would need to answer. And what I mean by that is that every school, for better or for worse, or a lot of schools, have slightly different questions. And to the extent that you can dump all the questions that are out there into a Word document and almost, look for overlap so that you can say to the recommender, look, if you answer these 6 questions, you'll have all the material you need to fill out the recommendations for the 4 schools that I'm applying to. So that can be useful just so that they know what's coming, because otherwise they're not going to know what questions they're being asked until they log in to the school system. And frankly, I think some we call them letters of recommendation. They're not. They're really just answers to a set of questions.
Right.
Usually they're, a couple of paragraphs each. So it's not really a letter. And I think sometimes even the recommenders are confused by that. Yeah. So coming up with a list, kind of an inventory, it's almost like a personal inventory that you would take about your time in that position where you worked under them, where you'd come up with a list of the things that you did for that boss, projects that you worked on, milestones, things that you remember, just to help jog their memory. Because frankly, some of these people are managing a lot of folks. They've written a lot of letters before. And so just to any extent, and we call that an anecdotes list, or you could call it, a personal inventory for the recommender of your time at the firm. The last thing, and this one, in terms of materials that you share with the recommender, is something that I would just call why school X. Yeah. So if you're applying to 4 schools, you would give them like a paragraph on each of the schools that you're applying to that explains why you're interested in that program. Now, why does that matter to the recommender?
I mean, it's kind of like the candidate needs to demonstrate fit through, how they portray their candidacy through the essays. But you want, again, that to be sort of repeated and reinforced in the recommendations. And the recommender, they might be an alum of one of the programs, but they might not know all 3 or 4 of the programs. So they want to know, well, what is it about Kellogg, for example, that's a really good fit for you in whatever goal that you've articulated. I understand why Wharton would make sense because that's the school that I came from. So you're just helping the recommender sort of piecing it all together in terms of fit. And I think that's really important. But it only, in this case, only a little bit of a paragraph. Yeah.
So, and I will say, when I used to read files, I was always impressed when the recommender would demonstrate a good knowledge of the candidates. Obviously, they know the candidate's work, but a knowledge of the candidate's goals and dreams and even sometimes their outside activities. But even more so when they would say something like, I know how excited Emily is about, whatever the school is, Foster, or, because she's, I know that she's interested in this program that they have, or, it just would show to me that there was this communication happening, and I would look favorably on that. I was like, wow, this is really, so in any event, you want to meet with your recommenders that you've asked to write for you, and you want to give them materials. And those materials are a list of school deadlines, a master list of the questions they might encounter, your resume, a career goals statement, an inventory or anecdotes list of your time with them, and then a little bit of a blurb on why you're applying to each school you're applying to. So, that's really...
I'm going to add another wrinkle to this piece of the pie, piece of the puzzle, just to get your perspective, because we talked about the common questions that are being asked. You added the fact that some schools will add some additional questions to for their own recommendations. That's important. But they also have these check boxes for the recommenders to check off, outstanding or can't respond or whatever. The default would be you would hope that your recommender checks outstanding in each of the boxes.
Right.
Is that the right approach?
No. These these kind of grids literally have, leadership skill, maturity, creativity. I mean, they usually have, 10 or 20 different categories. And then, as you said, anywhere from can't comment to outstanding. Whenever I used to see a rec letter where everything was outstanding down the line, I used to think, well, the recommender didn't take any time to really think about this. So, you really want them to take some time. Now, obviously, you don't want them to put you way down in the poor category or terrible or whatever. But some variants, maybe everything's in the kind of very good, excellent, outstanding, zone. But you want it to you want the recommender to take some time to go through that. And those grids are a part of almost every school's recommendation form. So another big piece that you should talk to your recommender about when you sit down with them, because they're going to need to know that too, because they might think they're doing you a service by marking you as excellent or, the top category for everything. So up next, we're going to get into an entirely different subject in the Admissions Academy. We're going to start talking about interviewing.